Good morning and welcome to the first regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen in the month of September. Please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could remain standing for a moment, I wanted to just acknowledge a couple people who served our community locally who passed since our last meeting. One of them was George Demko. George was a member of the Board of Estimate and Taxation for a number of years, worked for a company here in town called Europac Services, devoted his time to other nonprofit organizations. And then also Fred Intreri, who passed yesterday, 93 years old, spent 50 years with the Greenwich Fire Police Patrol, as well as one of our World War II veterans, so from the greatest generation. So if we could just take a moment and remember them and thank their families for their service. Thank you. There are copies of the meeting's agenda in the item that we will be discussing today here. In fact, maybe if I could ask you, we usually have them on the table in the rear, but item number 2 is approval of minutes. We do not have the final draft before us today, so we will defer those to our meeting on September 20th. Item number 3, updates, be brief. Want to thank Greenwich Hospital for their donation of more than 3 dozen Narcan kits to be carried by the Greenwich Police Department to help stem opioid overdoses. This is something that we have been working through the Prevention Council, which is an entity established initially through efforts of the First Selectman's Office, co-chaired by Human Services Commissioner Alan Barry and Police Chief Jim Heavey. Tomorrow at 10:30, we are going to have a brief ceremony here at the Town Hall to open the Greenwich Kindness Rocks Garden. This was an effort that was born out of support for a young man in our community who is battling a serious illness, and people have stepped forward to bring forth rocks with messages of support, inspiration, and we were asked if there could be a way to do that more broadly in our town. And so working with the Parks Department and the building staff, we were able to set aside an area as you enter this building on the left for people to bring forward rocks of certain dimension to place as an ongoing memorial and inspiration. Underlying this is the word kindness, and we hope that that's fostered throughout the community, but particularly when people come here to do public business. On Saturday, there'll be a dedication ceremony at the Greenwich Public Safety Complex. This dedication is in support of, or in honor of, I should say, John Margonaut, who served the town, continues to serve the town, but served first selectman for 10 years and selectman for 4 years, as well as on our BET and RTM and a whole host of community organizations. Mr. Margonaut is 90 years old, and we'll be honoring him by dedicating the atrium in the area to him on Saturday at 10 a.m. On Tuesday, it is 9/11. We know that this is the 17th anniversary. This community was deeply impacted with loss of residents. There will be 2 ceremonies taking place. One is at the Casca Park, where there is a beautiful memorial to those who perished. And then at 7:30 p.m., there is an additional ceremony at the Glenville Fire Department, where a piece of Trade Center steel is laid as a memorial, again, to those who were victims. On September 14th, Friday, as we do for many groups, nationalities, we are celebrating Mexican Independence Day. The Mexican flag raising will be held here at 10 a.m. And I believe there'll be some music and words of acknowledgement about the meaning of the day. And then on the 17th of September, we will have the first ever Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month program and proclamation. This is part of a more global effort of an organization called TEAL, which stands for Tell Every Amazing Lady. A resident of Greenwich came forward, personally experienced loss of her mom at a young age due to this. It is in many ways a silent killer, oftentimes not detected until it has metastasized. And this program is really designed to bring awareness and education to women in our community for screening. And so we will support that. Finally, through the good work of the Finance Department and the Office of the First Selectman, Mr. Branyan and Mr. Leviton, Mr. Geiger, we've published the third financial trend analysis report. This is disseminated to all department heads and appointing authorities. We CC the BET members. The purpose is to provide a 10-year historical analysis of several financial trends that describe the town's revenues, expenditures, and fund balances. The information helps provide context for the town's broader economic environment as departments develop their budgets for the upcoming fiscal year. The data and information used in this analysis comes from the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, the town budget books, and the actuarial valuation reports. The notes on the bottom of each graph indicate the specific sources that were used as well as how the figures were calculated where applicable. The information included highlights several trends that continue to put increasing pressure on the town budget, in particular the costs associated with employee health care and pension obligations are representing a larger portion of personnel costs. In addition, the rising costs the town has experienced, in addition to rising costs, the town has experienced a significant reduction in state aid. So it is critical to balance these obligations with our operational needs as we seek operational efficiencies through Lean Six Sigma methodology. Continue to provide exceptional service to the residents of Greenwich while maintaining a modest and predictable tax rate. So this is out there. It's a public document. If you'd like, gentlemen, I'll get you both a hard copy. It's a good reference guide as you go out and talk to people to easily have something you can flip through. And I do want to thank the folks who put it together. It was a good endeavor when they started because as we try to engage with RTM, people would bring forward data and it wasn't synthesized. It wasn't from CAFR, and this gave us a clear foundation on which to build discussion. So I want to thank those folks, Ben and Blaze and Roland. That concludes updates. We do have, as I said at the outset, a relatively brief agenda today. We have an item under old business, which is a resolution to amend town charter to clarify the role of the Condemnation Commission. This was something that was presented to us at the last meeting for discussion, and now we're going to have further questions that can be asked. And Mr. Litvak is with us today and is able to put forward any questions that we were not able to get asked at the last meeting. Thank you.
I guess my first question is the only change the elimination of the sewerage commissioners? In other words, there is a sentence when it says red line section of proposed amendment to the charter. It excises that one sentence. Is that the only change?
And the addition of the underlined section and the construction and issues related to public parking.
Okay.
So that's it. It's the elimination of the red and the addition of the black underlined.
All right. Is the executive summary separate document? Is that simply for ease of reference of people?
Yes.
Okay. Because I note that among other things, in the executive summary, well, let me go back a quarter of a step. There seems to be a difference, as it currently is constituted, between how the sewer commission works and how it works with respect to highways or parking. Is that correct?
Well, the original rules go back to a sewer commission and a highway commission. However, in our research, we weren't able to actually find any regulations regarding the sewer and highway commission because we believe that they were created sometime in the early 1900s.
I guess where I was going with this was, it seems that in the highway situation, you've got the commissioner of the Department of Public Works, who makes a judgment, deals with the homeowners, assuming for a moment they can't reach consensus, it goes to the condemnation commission.
Correct.
In the context of the sewers, as it currently is, it's not just that, it's the BET as well.
Well, because sewers are both a possible taking and also a possible benefit.
Well, I guess my question is the BET therefore continue to be involved?
Yes,
That stays just the way it is?
yes, exactly. Nothing has changed organizationally.
Okay, and so when it says, for instance, on public parking, the Condemnation Commission acts similarly in the taking of areas for public parking, is that similar to the Sewerage Commission, similar to the Highway Commission, similar to which?
That would be more similar to the Highway Commission.
To the Highway?
Yes.
I really think that ought to be made a little clearer, because when you say it shall be similar, and you have a different procedure depending on which it is, it's unclear which it's
Well,
similar
but
to.
the Condemnation Commission is a reactive commission.
Yes,
Right.
I understand that. I understand that. There's also no time provided. In other words, I understand it's 30 days to appeal, that I got.
Right.
But there's no time for the Condemnation Commission to act, correct?
Correct.
So, stated differently, this matter can be hanging fire for as long as whatever, a year. In other words, you can have a proposed taking, and yet nothing is happening because there's no time limits until the
That-
Condemnation Commission acts.
That is correct. Would you want to put one in, or?
Well, I would think you might want to have one. I mean, it just seems to me that, I hate to see things where there is no time limits on bodies to act, because if there's no time limit to act, they often will just not act, because there's no compulsion to do so for a period of time. I would think that some reasonable, and don't ask me what's reasonable, because I have no idea in this context, but some reasonable period of time might be something you'd want to consider.
But I think that would depend upon whether it was a sewer issue
Yeah,
or just a simple taking of a widening of a road.
it might well, and you might have different times, I don't know, but you might extend, you might have an outer limit for whatever you think might take the most time, and obviously they can do it in less time.
Right.
My question just goes to the fact that you've got no time, so, just something I think you ought to consider.
Interesting. Okay.
Do you have any questions? Is that something that you would entertain?
Certainly, would that go here in the charter? Or would that be some other regulatory? I don't know exactly where that should go, a time limit.
Well, that's a good question, and I don't purport to know the answer to that either.
I mean, because are there other time limits for other boards to act?
Well, there is a time limit for appeal, of course,
Right.
here in the charter.
No, but let's say a zoning board or another board, are there time limits for them to act in the charter? I don't believe
The
so.
only one
suspect
that,
not.
the only one that I can think of, not specific to this subject matter, but is with municipal improvements, like P and Z has to make a decision within 90 days. So there are time specific to that, and then, if you want to appeal an MI. And I know that this board, if we failed to act on a nomination,
Then it
I
goes
want to
the
say it's 6 months.
then
It goes to the RTM. So those are just two that I can think of off the top of my head. So there is language, and I believe that's charter language.
But on the other side, for not putting a time limit is that I guess if the town wanted to take someone's property, and if there wasn't a time limit, the Condemnation Commission could just decide to do nothing, and then the property would never be taken. Some people might say that would be a good thing, depending upon which
Yeah.
side you are on. But you're right, the indecision is never a good decision.
I mean, it's sort of a pocket veto, and I don't think that's what you want. Someone ought to make a decision. Either the property can be taken and for this compensation, or it can't be, just to let it hang fire. As you say, someone might like that, but that's not the way we ought to run government.
But so I guess my question is for zoning or any other sort of appeal or a request, do they have a time limit, and where is it stated? I don't really know the answer to that.
And the answer to that is, I don't know. Peter, is that stated in the charter, do you know, in the
With-
two instances in which you cited?
Those two, I'm fairly certain are in the charter. With planning and zoning, I know on their agendas, and again, I can't answer whether this is in the charter or within their regulation. It typically says must decide by, so there are time limitations on their review and decision on applications. So there is a mechanism. I cannot tell you sitting
But what I'm
here.
worried about is, let's say, for instance, if you had a large sewer, let's say you wanted to put sewers up in northern Greenwich. You would rely upon the town to come up with a map, then there would be engineers, then there would be problems that would occur. And then as those problems are occurring, you would say, okay, now we're not ready yet to map out these areas. So we're not ready to assign damages and/or benefits. And are you then causing other problems by putting artificial time?
Well, you put a time limit in which is geared toward the final submission of whatever documents the town is relying upon for the propriety of whatever it is they're trying to do. I mean,
Okay.
if the time shouldn't run from the first day, it's got to run from when a final record is submitted to the condemnation commission. They just shouldn't be allowed to sit there forever, I'm not suggesting they
Right.
would, without acting. So from the time everything is finally submitted, the parties have submitted whatever plans they have in mind or whatever objections they have in mind, the condemnation commission ought to have, I don't know, 90 days to rule, I mean, something.
Okay, I'm just worried whether 90 days is enough to
Oh, I just
have a
made that.
public hearing. Yes, but I guess we would have to decide on a certain time period. Would it be, is 6 months too long?
The one thing I think I'm probably not being clear about, but let me clarify, is what I have in mind is from the time it is finally submitted, hearing and all, papers, hearing, and everything,
Oh,
the
okay.
commission has to act within some time. It shouldn't just hang out there forever once everything is in. So I'm not trying to short-circuit the process per se.
Okay.
I'm trying to say, once it's done, act, and let's move on.
Okay, so is 120 days fair?
Sounds reasonable to me.
So then what would happen? Should we amend this and then put it forward towards another meeting, or?
Yeah, our next meeting is the 20th. I just have to double check, because I imagine you're looking to, this has to go to the RTM, correct? And it's coming from the Condemnation Commission, or is it?
No, it would be coming directly, because it's a charter change, it has to come
From
you.
us, but you're representing the
I guess I'm
RTM?
representing the RTM Special Committee on the condemnation.
Okay, RTM. You're
Yes.
not on condemnation, are you?
I am.
That's what I thought too, but it's the special committee, it's
There's
not,
a special committee made up of RTM members, Condemnation Commission, Legislative, and Rules.
okay. Yeah, if you don't mind, if you could just take that back, I think it would be cleaner to have the group that was working on it hear the
Yeah.
feedback, and then
See what they think.
it comes back to, it stays on our agenda, and then on the 20th, we're meeting again, and if you come back and say, look, we considered it, and we proposed
Okay.
that change that you suggested, we'll then have had that deliberation.
Sure. Okay, that should be easy, because we only have 4 members, so.
Okay, super, and we thank you again,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Collins, for
Thank you.
your commitment to this. Thank you very much. There is no other old business. New business, we have none. Appointments and nominations, we are in the process of interviewing candidates for positions that are either vacant or the term's expiring. I believe we have several interviews that we will do today, beginning now.
Now, 1 minute ago.
Now, so I wasn't going to fill the time and talk more, but I realized I had a couple other things under updates. I will just say this briefly. As we know, we've experienced several outages of electricity over the last several days. We have been ongoing contact with Eversource as it relates to the nature of them. We have requested a full accounting as to locations and cause. They have committed to provide that to us. I did provide publicly an avenue that exists in the state for people who have complaints with the utility to register those complaints, and that is with the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority. Josephine Sargent, our office customer service representative, fielded numerous phone calls yesterday, people expressing frustration with the lack of reliability and issue. And constructively, we thought if they're looking for someone who has relationship to accountability for the utility, it would be Pura. The number folks can call is 800-382-4586. In addition, you can send a email to Pura, that's Pura, .information@ct.gov. I did it myself on behalf of the town, not as a personal consumer, just because I was telling people to do it, I thought I should do it. And I put in a reason, and it gets registered. So again, we expect a full briefing. I want to compliment a person at Eversource, and that is Tracy Alston, our customer service liaison. She is terrific. I just want to be clear, I'm not criticizing Tracy. Tracy was on top of it, but she's only good as the information that she's given by the operations and then folks in the field. But in closing, I will say that we really want to be able to understand if, in fact, this is a generation issue, which is what their project is about, versus a distribution issue, which is what we have contended needs attention as well, and that's all the circuitry and switches and so forth. People have said, hey, look, you had a lot of people coming back online after Labor Day, systems juiced up, heat was up. That's likely the cause. Maybe, I'm not in a position to doubt them, but I'm also in a position to say that I'm not convinced. I want a fuller accounting of this so that we understand what the electrical infrastructure condition is. So thank you. At this time, we're moving to item 7, and if I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the sole purpose of interviewing candidates for boards and commissions.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It's 10:34.
Gotta go get a card.
Okay, is there a motion to return to public session?
Second.
Okay, without objection, on the board, in executive session, solely interviewed candidates for boards and commissions. We will not be acting on any nominations today, and therefore there is no further business to come before this meeting. The next meeting of the Board of Selectmen is on Thursday, September 20th, 2018 at 10 a.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Without objection.